My name is Olivia Hayes, and I've been keeping a promise for 8 years that's slowly killing me. Not all promises are meant to be kept. That's what my mother always told me. But this one was different. It was the last thing he asked of me before he left, before he married someone else. I still remember that rainy night in December, standing under the awning of our favorite coffee shop, the one where we first met as college freshmen. The rain pounded against the pavement, creating a symphony of white noise that almost drowned out the sound of my heart breaking. "Promise me you'll be happy, Liv," Noah had whispered, his forehead pressed against mine, his fingers intertwined with my own for the last time. "Promise me you won't wait." I promised. What else could I do? 8 years later, and I'm still waiting. Not actively, not consciously. I've dated other men. I've built a career I'm proud of. I've traveled and made new friends and adopted a 3-legged rescue cat named Hemingway. But there's a part of me, a small, stubborn part, that's been frozen in time since that night, waiting for Noah Bradley to come back and thaw it out. Which is why finding the invitation in my mailbox yesterday felt like being hit by lightning. "Noah Bradley and Katherine Wilson request the honor of your presence at the celebration of their marriage vows, a vow renewal, 5 years after their wedding, an event I wasn't invited to the first time around." And there, scrawled in Noah's unmistakable handwriting across the bottom of the invitation, "I need to see you, Liv. Please come." Now I'm standing in front of my closet, wondering what the hell you wear to the vow renewal of the only man you've ever truly loved. Wondering why, after all this time, he suddenly needs to see me. And wondering if I'm strong enough to keep that last promise I made him, to be happy when seeing him with her might just destroy me all over again. My best friend Mia thinks I'm insane for even considering going. "It's emotional self-flagellation," she said last night over wine and takeout. "You've spent 8 years getting over him. Why would you put yourself through this?" But that's just it. I haven't spent 8 years getting over Noah. I've spent 8 years pretending I have. There's a difference. I met Noah during our first week at Columbia University. He accidentally spilled his coffee on my economics textbook in the campus cafe and spent the next 20 minutes frantically trying to dry the pages with napkins. "I'm sorry," he kept saying, those intense blue eyes filled with genuine distress. "I'll buy you a new one. I'll buy you 10 new ones. Just please don't hate me because I really think we could be friends, and maybe more than friends someday, and I've completely ruined any chance of that now, haven't I?" He said it all in one breath. This beautiful boy with dark curls and coffee-stained fingers. And just like that, I was gone. We were inseparable for the next 4 years, best friends who became lovers who became each other's entire world. We had it all mapped out: graduation. Then Noah would go to medical school while I pursued my master's in publishing. We'd live in a tiny apartment, survive on ramen and love. And eventually, when we were established in our careers, we'd get married, have kids, grow old together. But life rarely follows the maps we draw for it. 3 weeks before graduation, Noah's father had a massive heart attack. He survived, but the family business, a chain of pharmacies that had been in the Bradley family for generations, was in trouble. Noah's older brother was supposed to take over, but he'd moved to Europe years ago and had no interest in coming back. "It's just temporary," Noah told me, packing his things to move back to his hometown in Massachusetts. 2 years, tops. I'll get the business back on track, hire a manager, and then I'll come back. We'll pick up right where we left off. I believed him. I believed in us. For the first year, We made it work. Weekend visits, long phone calls, plans for the future. But slowly, things began to change. The visits became less frequent, the calls shorter. Noah was always tired, always stressed, always talking about the business. And then there was Katherine Wilson, the daughter of Noah's father's best friend, a pharmacy school graduate who started helping out at the main store. She's just a friend, Noah insisted when I asked about the pretty blonde who kept appearing in his social media posts. She understands the business. She's been a huge help. I trusted him until the night I surprised him with a visit and found them having dinner at his apartment, a bottle of wine half empty between them, Katherine laughing at something Noah said in a way that was anything but friendly. I left before they saw me, drove back to New York in a blur of tears, and 3 days later, when Noah finally called, I knew before he spoke that it was over. My dad needs me here, he said, his voice thick with what I hoped was regret. The business needs me. I can't leave. Live, not now, maybe not ever. And Katherine, I asked, already knowing the answer. His silence told me everything. I never meant for this to happen, he finally said. But her family, they've known my family forever. Our dads are best friends. The merger of our pharmacies would secure both our futures. It makes sense in a way that I never did. I finished for him. That was the night in the rain, the night of the promise. The last time I saw Noah Bradley. Until now. The vow renewal is tomorrow, at the Bradley family estate in the Berkshire. I've booked a room at a small inn nearby, not wanting to stay at the estate itself even though the invitation mentioned accommodations would be provided for out-of-town guests. I finally decide on a simple navy blue dress for the ceremony, elegant but not flashy, the kind of dress that says, "Look how well I'm doing without you," even if it's a lie. As I pack it carefully into my suitcase, I wonder again why Noah wants me there. Is something wrong? Is he sick? Or does he simply want to show off his perfect life with his perfect wife to prove he made the right choice? Whatever the reason, I need to know. I need closure. Maybe seeing him happy with Katherine will finally allow me to move on, to keep that last promise for real, not just for show. The drive to the Berkshires the next morning is beautiful and torturous. Fallen New England is a postcard come to life. Crimson and gold leaves painting the landscape, crisp air that smells like apples and earth, the kind of perfect blue sky that makes you believe in God. Noah and I used to talk about having a house up here someday, a place to escape the city on weekends, a place where our future children could run free. I push the memory away and focus on driving, on breathing, on not turning around and fleeing back to New York. The Bradley estate is exactly as I remember it from the few times I visited during college, sprawling and elegant, with manicured gardens and a view of the mountains that takes your breath away. Cars line the long driveway, and I can see white chairs set up on the lawn, an arbor draped in flowers marking the spot where Noah and Katherine will renew their vows. I park and sit in my car for a long moment, gathering courage. Through the windshield, I watch guests in elegant attire, making their way toward the ceremony site. I don't recognize most of them. Noah's new life, Noah's real life. Finally, I force myself to get out of the car, smooth down my dress, check my lipstick in the side mirror. You can do this, I whisper to myself. One day, just get through this one day. I'm halfway to the seating area when I hear my name. Olivia? I turn, and there he is, Noah, 8 years older, but somehow exactly the same. Those blue eyes, that unruly dark hair, the slight crook in his nose from when he broke it, playing intramural soccer our sophomore year. He's wearing a tuxedo, looking more handsome than any human has a right to look. and he's staring at me like he's seeing a ghost. You came, he says, his voice a mix of disbelief and something else I can't quite identify. I wasn't sure you would. You said you needed to see me, I reply, proud of how steady my voice sounds when my heart is threatening to pound its way out my chest. So here I am. Noah takes a step toward me, then stops, as if remembering where we are, who he is, who I am, what we are to each other now, strangers with a history. Can we talk? He asks, privately. I glance at the ceremony site, where guests are still gathering. Shouldn't you be getting ready to renew your vows? The words come out more bitter than I intended. Noah runs a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remember so well it makes my chest ache. Please, Liv, just give me 5 minutes. I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. But I nod and follow him away from the crowd, toward a small gazebo at the edge of the property that overlooks a pond. Another memory hits me, sitting in this very gazebo during a summer visit, Noah's head in my lap as I read aloud from my favorite novel, his mother bringing us lemonade and smiling at us like she already considered me a daughter. We reach the gazebo, and Noah gestures for me to sit on the bench. I remain standing. Whatever he has to say, I'll hear it on my feet. You look beautiful, he says softly. Noah, I say, my patience wearing thin. Why am I here? He takes a deep breath. The vow renewal isn't happening. I blink at him, confused. What do you mean? There are 100 people out there waiting for it to start. They're not waiting for a vow renewal, he says. They're waiting for an announcement. He looks out at the pond, his profile sharp against the autumn backdrop. Katherine and I are getting divorced. The words hang in the air between us, impossible and unreal. I don't understand. I finally manage. Why would you invite me to a vow renewal that isn't happening? Why would you invite anyone? Noah turns back to me, his eyes filled with a sadness that seems bone deep. The invitations went out 6 months ago, when a renewal was still the plan. Katherine's idea. She thought it might fix things between us. He laughs, but there's no humor in it, as if a party and some recycled vows could repair 5 years of pretending. Pretending what? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to hear the answer. Pretending that I made the right choice, he says simply. Pretending that I wasn't still in love with you. The world tilts beneath my feet. Don't, I whisper. Don't you dare say that to me. Not now. Not after 8 years. I know, he says quickly. I know I have no right. But when things finally fell apart with Katherine 3 months ago, when we both admitted this marriage had been a mistake from the start, all I could think about was you. He takes a step toward me, and this time I'm the one who backs away. We decided to use the event to tell everyone at once, he continues. Rip the Band-Aid off, but I couldn't bear the thought of you finding out from social media or mutual friends. I needed to tell you myself. So you scribbled a cryptic note on my invitation instead of, I don't know, calling me like a normal person. My voice rises with each word. Do you have any idea what it did to me? Seeing that invitation, thinking you wanted me to watch you recommit to her. I'm sorry, Noah says, and he does look sorry. I didn't know how to reach out after all this time. I was a coward. I am a coward. Yes, I agree. Anger and confusion swirling inside me. You are. We stand in tense silence for a moment, the sounds of the gathering crowd a distant murmur. What happened? I finally ask, with Katherine. Noah sighs. What I told you that night was true. Our families wanted us together. The business merger made sense. On paper, we were perfect. He sits on the bench, suddenly looking exhausted. But you can't build a life on what makes sense on paper. Katherine knew I didn't love her the way she deserved. She tried to make it work anyway. We both did. He looks up at me. She's not a villain in this story. Liv, she's a good person who deserved better than a husband who was in love with someone else. The implication of his words sits heavy between us. So what now? I ask. You tell everyone your marriage is over. And then what? You thought I'd just be waiting, that I'd run back to you. No, he says quickly. God, no, I don't expect anything from you. I needed to see you, to apologize, to tell you that letting you go was the biggest mistake of my life. He stands, moving closer to me again. This time, I don't back away. I made you promise to be happy, he says softly, to not wait for me, and I need to know, did you keep that promise? Are you happy, Lev? The question pierces me. Am I happy? I have a good job, friends who love me, a life I've built carefully in the wake of losing him. But happy? I tried, I whisper. I really tried to keep that promise. Noah's eyes search mine, understanding what I'm not saying. He reaches for my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I let him take it. His palm is warm against mine, familiar in a way that makes my chest ache. I'm not asking for anything, he says. I just want you to know the truth, that I never stopped loving you, that I think about you every day, Noah, a voice calls from the direction of the house. Everyone's waiting. We both turn to see a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair walking toward us. Katherine. She's beautiful in a simple white dress, not a wedding gown. I realize, but something more appropriate for the announcement they're about to make. She stops when she sees me, recognition dawning in her eyes. Olivia, she says, you came. Her voice holds no animosity, only a weary sort of acknowledgement. She knows. She's always known. I should go, I say, pulling my hand from Noah's. This is a family matter. I don't belong here. Stay, Katherine says, surprising me. Please, you came all this way. She looks between Noah and me, a sad smile touching her lips. Besides, I think you're a part of this story too. You always have been. Before I can respond, she turns to Noah. They're getting restless. We should do this now. Noah nods, his eyes still on me. Will you wait? He asks. After the announcement, will you stay so we can talk more? I should say no. I should get in my car and drive back to New York and leave this chapter of my life firmly closed. But the truth is, it never really closed in the first place. I'll wait, I hear myself say. Katherine gives me another smile, this one more genuine, and then turns to walk back toward the gathering. Noah lingers for a moment. Thank you, he says, and then he follows his soon-to-be ex-wife to announce the end of their marriage. I stay in the gazebo, watching from a distance as they stand together before their friends and family. I can't hear what they're saying, but I can see the reactions: surprise, concern, a few knowing nods. Noah's mother pulls Katherine into a hug. Noah's father looks stoic but not angry. It seems like an amicable end. As these things go, as the crowd begins to disperse, some leaving, others moving toward the house where I assume food and drinks await, I remain where I am, waiting, as I promised, but not just for Noah to return to the gazebo. I'm waiting to understand what I'm feeling. Shock, certainly, confusion, a dangerous flicker of hope that I'm trying desperately to extinguish, because even if Noah still loves me, even if he's freed them, 8 years is a long time. We're different people. The boy who spilled coffee on my textbook and the girl who fell in love with him don't exist anymore. And yet, I see Noah making his way back to me, walking slowly as if giving me time to flee if I want. But I don't move. I watch him approach, this man I once knew better than myself, now a stranger with a familiar face. "How did it go?" I ask when he reaches me. "About as well as could be expected," he says. No one was really surprised. I think we were the last ones to admit it wasn't working. He sits on the bench, leaving space for me to join him if I choose. After a moment, I do. "What happens now?" I ask. "With the business? With your families?" "The merger is still intact," he says. "That was never contingent on our marriage, though our parents certainly implied it was. Katherine will continue running her family's side, and I'll run mine." He turns to look at me. "I never went to medical school," he says, as if just realizing I wouldn't know this. I telling myself I would, eventually, but the business needed me, and then years passed, and it just didn't happen. "Do you regret it?" I ask. "Not going to medical school, sometimes," he admits, "but that's not my biggest regret." I know what he's going to say before he says it. "Liv," he begins, his voice soft. "I know I have no right to ask this. I know it's been 8 years, and you've built a life without me, but I have to know, is there any part of you that still thinks about us, about what might have been?" The question hangs between us, heavy with possibility. I could lie to protect myself from the risk of being hurt again, but I'm tired of pretending. "Every day," I whisper. "I think about us every day." Noah's sharp intake of breath is the only sound for a moment. "But that doesn't mean we can just pick up where we left off," I continue. "Too much has happened. We're different people now." "I know," he says. "I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a chance to get to know who you are now, to let you know who I am." He turns fully toward me on the bench, his eyes earnest. "I'm asking if you might be willing to have coffee with me sometime. Just coffee, no expectations. Just coffee, like how we began, all those years ago." "I live in New York," I point out. "You live here?" "Actually," he says, a small smile playing at his lips. "I've been looking at properties in New York. We're expanding the business, opening a specialty pharmacy in Manhattan. I'll be overseeing it, which means relocating." "You're moving to New York?" I ask, unable to keep the surprise from my voice. "The plans were in motion before all of this," he gestures vaguely, indicating the end of his marriage. "But yes, I'll be in New York by the end of the month." The universe has a strange sense of humor sometimes. 8 years of separation, and now he'll be in my city. "Just coffee?" I ask, still wary. "Just coffee," he confirms, "though I can't promise I won't spill it on you again." Despite everything, I find myself smiling. There he is, the boy I knew, still present in the man before me. "I can't make any promises, Noah," I say seriously. "I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if whatever we had can be rebuilt." "I understand," he says, "and I'm not asking for promises, just possibilities." Possibilities. It's both less and more than I ever expected from this day. "Okay," I finally say. "Coffee, when you're settled in New York." The smile that breaks across his face is like the sun coming out after a storm. "Thank you," he says. And I know he's thanking me for more than just agreeing to coffee. We sit in the gazebo as the afternoon light begins to fade, talking about the past 8 years, my job in publishing, his work with the family business, mutual friends we've kept in touch with, places we've traveled, carefully getting to know each other again. As the sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I realize something. For the first time in 8 years, I feel the weight of that last promise beginning to lift. Not because Noah has come back into my life, but because I'm finally allowing myself to acknowledge the truth I've been hiding from,
that happiness isn't about keeping or breaking promises made in the rain. It's about being honest with yourself about what you want, about who you are. I don't know if Noah and I will find our way back to each other. I don't know if coffee will lead to dinner, will lead to something more. But sitting here with him as the day ends, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Possibility, hope, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of real happiness. Not the kind I've been pretending to have all these years, but the kind that comes from facing the truth, however complicated it might be. What are you thinking about? Noah asks, noticing my silence. I look at him, this man who broke my heart and might still hold the pieces, and decide to start as we mean to go on. With honesty. I'm thinking about promises, I say, the ones we keep, the ones we break, and the new ones we might make someday. Noah's hand finds mine on the bench between us. He doesn't hold it, just lets his fingers rest lightly against mine. An invitation, not a demand. I like the sound of that, he says softly. Someday, as the last light fades from the sky, I let my fingers intertwine with his. Not a promise, not yet, but a possibility, and for now, that's enough.
If Noah and Olivia's journey between promises made and promises broken stirred something in your heart, tap subscribe to join our community, where every whispered story holds the possibility of healing. Your likes, comments, and shares breathe life into these characters, allowing more promises, possibilities, and second chances to unfold with each new story we share.